Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Who here is weirdly drawn towards grey aliens? I've read other anons saying the same thing, but ever since I was a kid, I've always been drawn towards grey aliens. They terrify me, but I'm obsessed with them. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and for no reason thinking about them, pulled out of a deep sleep and instantly awake. Nothing ever happens though. No aliens in my room, abduction, fear. Just waking up thinking about their eyes and their large heads looking at me from the foot of my bed. Nothing ever happens though. When I was a kid, my big brother put an alien sticker beside his light switch. It terrified me. I never went in his room. It's so irrational to have such a specific fear about them when so young. Even Barbies freaked me out. They had the same big heads, slender bodies, and almond-shaped eyes. I had weird shit happen to me too. It's not about those though. I want to hear your stories. Don't post dimensional shit. Don't post other alien species shit. Only about greys.
I'm not entirely sure if this one counts, but I've always been afraid of aliens. One of my biggest fears is waking up in my bed, paralyzed, look straight ahead and where my door is, and seeing a gray peek its head through the door that is slightly open, looking directly at me. I'm not sure if I've seen this in a movie when I was younger or not, but I feel more comfortable falling asleep on my stomach. 3 or 4 months ago. Fall asleep as usual, lights off, everything okay. In my dream, I'm in bed on my stomach, can't move. You know those dreams where you feel like you're awake but not really. Try to move, realize I can't, start to panic. Feel something crawl onto my bed with its feet on the sides of my body. Can feel its eyes on my neck. Too afraid to open mine. Start feeling the cold sweat. I can literally feel its weight on my bed. He doesn't move. I finally got the courage to open my eyes after a good 5 minutes. Open my eyes and turn around quickly to confront it. Nothing is there. Chill myself out. Cold sweat hits again much harder. Realize I've been awake the whole time.
Ah, Jesus, dude. You don't know how uncomfortable that made me. Something happened when I was a kid, 8 or so, and it's one of those things where, looking back on it 12 years later, I'm not sure if it actually happened or if I was somehow remembering a dream. It was exactly like you described, not the Greentext part, but the first part, about seeing something through your bedroom door. I just remember seeing something. It was dark, but there was moonlight, and it was glinting off what I assume was the head. I don't remember any facial features, but I think I knew at the time, and I still have a feeling today that it was facing me, looking in at me through the ajar door. I remember, and this is hard for me to recount, BC. I'm getting chills as I type this, that I couldn't move, although even if I could, I wouldn't wanted to have gotten out from under the covers, so I just tried to fall asleep again in the hopes that it would leave me alone and I wouldn't have to look at it.
Your post reminded me of some of the experiences I have had when I sleep alone that have begun to occur after my first encounter, or whatever you want to call it. Be 11 or 12, live in a 3-bedroom house with my family. My room was converted from an office, have huge windows the size of the entire wall, have no damn door, have to use a thin curtain for privacy, room is the farthest in the house from any other rooms, have to walk through the kitchen and living room to get to another room. Wake up one night because I hear an odd scraping noise. Can't sleep due to the stupid noise. Assume it's my sister's because of the light in the living room. Get out of bed and walk into the kitchen to see what's going on in the living room. Glass door leading to the backyard was open, and the window next to it both had this odd glow. A soft kind of greenish tint to it. Not bright, but made it bright enough to see. Step out of the kitchen to get a better look when I see it. Standing there next to my mother's china cabinet, looking into it. Tall, with elongated arms, standing kind of slouched over. Had long and disproportionate features. Stand frozen, looking at it 5, 6 feet away. Slowly start to walk past it, trying to be quiet. It suddenly stands straight up, towering over the cabinet, and turns to look at me. I became absolutely mortified and shocked because I first assumed it was a person. Its eyes looked into mine as if it was concerned. It fucking reached for me,
I screamed and ran past it, barely out of its reach. I run down the hall and banged as hard as I could on my parents' door because it was locked. Light fades away as I scream and go into a panic attack. Dad opens the door with a baseball bat and runs into the living room. Nothing there. My dad found the back door open that night and was kind of freaked out himself. The next day when I was at school, an officer and therapist approached me to question me about what had happened, thinking it was a burglar, but no one believed me, of course.
Around 13 years old, living in rural Ohio. Live in a 2-story house in a neighborhood bordering a forest. Sleeping in the living room on the couch because I fell asleep watching TV. Wake up at around 2 in the morning because I'm thirsty. Notice the TV turned off while I was asleep, along with the lights, but I was too tired to really think anything about it. Walked into the kitchen, got a cup of water, and walked back into the living room. As I walked back into the living room, I noticed a figure standing in the window. Real tall, lanky-looking thing. If I was awake enough, I'd probably have freaked out. However, I'm really tall and lanky-looking too, so I thought it was my reflection in the window at first. I realized it wasn't my reflection because it didn't correspond with my movements. When this happened, I began to feel like something's off. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I noticed this figure is pretty much completely bald, plus its arms were a lot longer than mine. Also, its eyes were completely black, pretty much the description of the typical gray alien. Get real nervous but afraid to move quickly for fear of startling the thing. Walked backwards slowly into the kitchen again to grab a large kitchen knife. Walked slowly back into the living room again and noticed the thing had disappeared. TV blares to life again and startles me. Lights turn back on. Not completely sure whether or not it was a person, an alien, my reflection, or a figment of my tired imagination, so I didn't mention it to my parents in the morning. However, I did start sleeping upstairs after this, thinking that the thing would be too weak to climb up the roof to startle me again.
Let me preface this by stating that I don't personally believe in greys, or even most types of other aliens described by people from abduction stories. I believe there is other life out there in the universe, and it's possible we may have been visited, albeit on a limited basis. I don't know how to explain what has happened to me, and others in my experiences. With that out of the way, let me get onto my experiences if you guys want me to continue. The reason I wish to share this is because there was a young lady on here earlier sharing experiences she had from childhood until the present. I don't talk about these experiences with anyone else except my blood family. My wife, her family, and not any of my friends, except my close childhood friend, have heard any of these experiences. My wife does know some about my experiences, but I have never really talked about it in detail or a lot with her. I feel like I need to get some of this off my chest. I have typed this up in Word for convenient and fast posting. First recalled experience was from childhood, approximately 2 to 4 years of age. Spider-Man came to visit me in my room at night when everyone went to sleep, but he looks odd. Tell everyone that will listen to me. Write it off as a child's imagination. The first memory is very short and without detail. Next memorable experience, about 11 years of age. Sleeping, awakened to the sound of the house shaking. I live in Florida, and what is this? I was laying on my stomach and propped my head up on my elbows while this was still going on. Light comes through the window that looks like very bright high beams from a car. Here's something that I can only describe as old-timey music played on an old-timey radio. It's like music that is out of pitch and sounds filtered. This goes on for an indiscernible amount of time before it all ends. There is a bedroom light on in the master bedroom. Dad walks in and tells me it's time to get up for school, just staring at me as I sit there with my head propped up before he even came in. Dad's weird look.jpg. Didn't you hear it? Hear what? He looks a bit confused. I guess /x/ is slow in the mornings? I'll keep posting and maybe repost after class or just bump it. Be 11, maybe 12 years old. Friday night, baby. Time for some Unsolved Mysteries. Unsolved Mysteries was a show during the 90s that featured kidnappings, murders, disappearances, and sometimes the paranormal. Brother and I always tune in for the spooky ghosts. We're big, brave kids, so we get to stay up late and watch. This is so badass. A segment comes on featuring UFOs, which was a treat because the paranormal stuff is what we tuned in for. We watched the segment and not a single creep out was given. I remember this part very clearly, like it happened yesterday. Commercial comes on, not part of the show. Guy talking in a clear and monotone type of voice. Have you, a friend, or a loved one seen a creature resembling this? Picture of what others call a gray alien. Brother and I look at each other, and we already know what comes next. Go blazing down the hallway to our parents' room crying like hurt animals. Parents think we pissed ourselves over a late-night horror flick and let us sleep with them. Didn't talk about that day until much later in our lives. It was a very weird experience for me. I have never seen anything like that I know of, up until that moment. But as soon as I did, I was immediately terrified by it. My brother was as equally freaked out as I was. So much for being big, tough kids. It was at that moment that began my fascination in UFOs and aliens. Many years pass, I'm out of high school, got a job, an apartment, and a girlfriend, and then the night terrors start. I remember the first one very clearly. Some of them I have sort of forgotten over the years, but the first one has always stuck with me. Be in my room back at my parents' house. Something at the door of my room, it wants to get in. Look through a peephole. That didn't exist in real life. There it was, a gray, and it appeared to be wearing Egyptian royalty attire. You know, like a King Tut kind of getup. My heart is racing, I'm terrified, and I don't know why. I wanted to leave, so I lock the door, and then I bang on it as hard as I can. It doesn't like that and tries to force open the door. Scream like a French soldier. MP3. That would be the first in a long series of night terrors. Fortunately, I learned how to lucid dream, and it helped a lot with night terrors. After about a month of doing it, the night terrors completely stopped. Every now and again I'll have a nightmare involving grays, but none where I wake up or scream in my sleep. Sometimes I don't even see one, but I intuitively know that they are there. Years later, I don't do anything involved with UFOs and aliens. I don't watch related TV, discuss on forums, think about, or even talk about it to family members. My girlfriend and I are getting serious, and I have started bringing her on vacations with my family and I. This is another night that I will never forget. At a dinner table on a cruise ship in the Caribbean with my immediate family, and my uncle and aunt who came down from New York to join us. Normal dinner table talk, my dad and uncle both one-upping each other in childhood stories. Everyone stops talking after a while, like we ran out of things to talk about. Auntie H, not going to say her real name for obvious reasons, says, R, why don't you tell them about your dream last night? Uncle R goes on and on about how nobody wants to hear about it. Well, we have nothing else to talk about, so let's hear it. Uncle R describes a very weird scene. Uncle R called them little Indians, who had taken Aunt H. Uncle R then sits there and thinks. He wants to say more. Continues, they were like people, but not like people. Everyone is confused. They were small, but they had really big heads and their eyes were like hollow, but they had eyes. Brother and I look at each other. We know what's up. Uncle R was moving around in his sleep, punching at the air, trying to fight off the little Indians. Ask him if he believes in aliens. Nope, that shit ain't allowed with strict Catholics. My uncle won't talk about the dream anymore. I drew a gray and asked if this was one of his little Indians. He wouldn't respond. I forgot to mention when I was a kid I would sleepwalk. I don't think this was abnormal for kids, especially my family where my brother would sleep talk. However, for me it was a bit strange because my sleepwalks always led me outside. Walk through the living room past the kitchen where the family is eating pizza they ordered. Hey Anon, do you want some pizza? Only part of sleepwalking I remember. Walk out the front door at 8 p.m. at night. Dad comes out to get me, and I'm not there. Return about 20 minutes later. Walk back to bed like nothing happened. My parents let my brother and I be kids. We often went out at night to hang out with friends, even as kids, so it wasn't unusual for something like that to happen. I don't clearly remember my sleepwalking episodes and only have family stories to rely on. As far as my family has told me, it was an ongoing event for a few months, when I was between about 10 or 11. After I started having my night terrors, I wanted to kind of confront what was going on. I looked for information about aliens, UFOs, contactees, and other such related topics. I was told about Strieber's communion. see book cover and nope away from that book. Stupidly decide the movie would be better. Very dumb decision. Finally just man up, tape the cover of the book, and read. Very eerie similarities in experiences and mindset with Strieber. Don't like wide open spaces or living in secluded areas. Would prefer a one-room apartment in a big city with a window facing a brick wall. Strange occurrences that, when reflected upon, can't be explained. If you haven't read the book, I recommend it. Strieber also tries to account for the abduction phenomena in other ways other than otherworldly contact.
It was the northern Canadian wilderness in winter during the witching hours, and I was a boy, and they were glowing balls of lights of different sizes. Too dark to see if they were part of some massive ship or solo lights. After they zigzagged off, we went to sleep as a family with friends, and that's when I reawoke to the 3 grays, each slightly different heights. The bed I was on reached just under their belly buttons. They had massive slanted almond-shaped eyes and small slits for mouths in a smirking manner. I panicked and spun around and buried my head into my pillow and blacked out. I was 8 and never seen an alien before then. I can confirm this is real because both my friends and family watched the ships. And when I was 19 I saw the same light, but this time, it was a glowing red light and I heard it skipping across the sky above a tree canopy during the witching hours in British Columbia, Canada. In Alberta, I saw a gray disc and showed my sister too before it vanished.
OC Greentext because fuck it. Gonna keep the jargon down and try not to dox myself too much. Be me in the military over 10 years ago. Deployed to the Middle East. Logistics. One of my jobs is to inspect cargo before it gets on airplanes because people legit move like Humvees with grenades and claymores and shit and don't understand why it's wrong. Come into work and get told I got an inspection on a 40-foot trailer full of night vision goggles. Think it's weird there's a trailer full of night vision goggles, but whatever, I just work here. Oh, it's also on the other side of base in the ammo yard. Even weirder because that area is for, well, ammo and explosives. Drive out there with another inspector. User, as we call them, turns out to be an Army Special Forces group. Okay, that explains the trailer is in a way. They move weird shit all the time. Get some scales, have the user back it on, get all my weights and measurements and stuff for the guys who plan it on the specific mission. Special Forces guys think we're done. Not so fast. Tell them I have to look inside it to verify they aren't moving any undocumented hazmat, blah blah blah. The troop leader, a major, says absolutely not fucking happening. Well then I can't sign this form saying it's cleared. DTR, Defense Transportation Regulation, gives us final authority on its movement. Only way to avoid this is with what's called a site-sensitive waiver, issued by Transcom, which they don't have because no one ever reads the DTR. For the sake of brevity, imagine a bunch of back and forth, get me your commander, blah blah. Eventually, they cave. They need my signature since it's not going up on one of their Special Operations Command birds. Major opens the trailer telling me to come in. Upon opening, there's a tarp, basically blocking the view from the outside if someone opens the doors. Walk inside the tarp with Major, and he immediately pins me up against the corner and says how I'm going to have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Of course, he didn't have that on him either, as he wasn't expecting all this. Don't fuck him over, he'll find me. So I get spooked because I'm no one special. This is totally not going how I thought it would go. Finally, after I yes sir to him about all that stuff, I took a look. There are 6 containers, holding what looked like humanoid figures. They legit looked like something out of the movies where they stumble into like a cryo freezer and things. Bunch of computers and stuff connected to these containers. Couldn't get a good look because the part where you can view what's in it was fogged up. Persian Gulf country, summer, at night means humidity is insane. People's glasses would fog up instantly upon walking outside. Realize I'm way over what I should be looking at and quickly say all good and sign the form I needed to sign. Major takes the form, threatens me again not to fuck him, and he'll be by the office with the NDA shortly. Other dude that was with me wasn't allowed in, sees me walk out like I saw a ghost, keeps bugging me about what was in it. I can't say. Won't stop asking me about it for the rest of the deployment and even some time after. Major shows back up at my office the next day to inquire about the mission his cargo is going on. Dipshit forgot the NDA. Threatens me again and says he'll bring it in a few hours. Didn't see him ever again after this. Here's the cherry on top, though. While the Major was there, he was informed his mission was being tail-swapped and would be loaded later than expected. He lost his shit. When he wasn't getting anywhere, this dude pulls out a government cell phone and speed dials some general who quickly gets his way, and they end up loading it at the original time. The ops guys later tell me this shit apparently could only be loaded at a specific time to mask its movement from either Russian or Chinese satellites they knew were tracking it. That time period was a gap between coverage. Spent a week wondering if that Major was going to shoot me from the shadows for not signing his NDA.
This happened to me when I was a sophomore in high school. I'm 21 now, but I can remember everything like it was yesterday. When I got into high school, my whole view of the world changed, and I basically became a little shithead. Around sophomore year, I went through a phase where, in the middle of the night, I would sneak out my bedroom window with a backpack and go on my bike in usually a black fleece hoodie and black jeans and ride around and find things to get into. I mainly went into people's yards and stole shit. I did this a lot on school nights. The main reason I did it was because I had just gotten my learner's permit and my parents showed no signs of getting me a vehicle, so I thought, hey, maybe I'll go and find me a vehicle. I'd find vehicles that were either broken down or have looked like they sat for a long time and mess with them, find the spare keys in the glove box and turn them on to listen to radio and flash the lights. I only got one to crank, and it was loud. Anyways, one night it was getting to about 3 a.m., so I decided to start going back home. There was a 15-foot oak tree on the side of our house, and that's where I usually left my bike up against it. I got to the tree and got off my bike. As soon as I got off my bike, lights filled the sky like one big blue-white light filled the sky. It was so bright, the wind started blowing like from the propeller of a helicopter, and I looked up, and all I could see was this white-blue bright light, and all of a sudden, a screeching high sound pierced my ears, and it made me fall to the ground, holding my palms to my ears. Within a span of maybe 20 seconds of all this happening, start to finish, it was gone. I have goosebumps from even writing this. I remember opening my eyes feeling lightheaded and ran to my bedroom window and jumped back in as quickly as possible. I don't know what it was, but I think about it a lot even after years. It was crazy. It was one of the reasons I stopped. Spooked me bad.
Well, I've been interested in the alien abduction phenomenon since I was a kid. At first, I had an irrational fear of grays, and that made me reluctant at first. Now I have gone fully into studying it. Lots of weird things people will misunderstand about it, though. For example, did you know that the face of the typical gray is actually an advanced space mask? A good amount of abductees insist that the back of their head had something that looked like a seam, and others claim to see eyes within or behind their wraparound almond eyes, which are commonly used to, in the abductees' words, peer into their souls or read their thoughts and communicate telepathically. Almost all gray-related abduction has a period where one of the beings stares into their eyes right above them for a time. Aside from that, there are many speculations as to what they are and where they're from. I think the most plausible are time travelers from the future, maybe even our future or another timeline. Sufficiently advanced interstellar beings. Organisms from a higher dimension projecting themselves into ours through a conduit of sorts. Aside from that, a lot of things are less obvious. The Greys, for example, look a lot like us without the helmet, except many report they have large foreheads and bulging eyes. In my opinion, they are no more than biological machines. Many appear to be devoid of emotion, entirely working through reason. Most of them are shorter versions who bustle about the craft performing basic tasks and running the equipment. Usually there is one taller, more outspoken entity called the Doctor, which is hilarious to know when I watch Doctor Who. It's more of a word association, I believe. They almost always communicate telepathically, so the ideas are projected, not actual human speech. What else? I have a lot to say, but it'd be easier to answer questions. Oh, and I very rarely hear about reptilian aliens in respectable literature.
Any more races you know about of, so please do tell.
I've heard of insectoids and Nordic aliens being the two most prominent. Nordic aliens are almost synonymous with abductions regarding themes like hybridization and diplomatic themes like visitations. More than likely, they are taking a form pleasing to us, or are using biological avatars like, well, Avatar. It is much less likely a human male will want to remember being with a being they've never seen, that looks nothing like them or what they're attracted to as a species. We have problems with the uncanny valley in things that we create. The beings are far aware that we are not comfortable seeing their form. As for insectoids and sauroids, all I've learned involves past life experiences in regression hypnosis regarding abductions that comes about frequently. Life seems to be much more connected than what is pessimistically perceived. That is, Jungian collective consciousness is a great start to what they believe, tell us. Some tell of spirits, again, most likely word association, which would imply beings that actually serve the purpose of spirits as believed by shamanic and Eastern mythologies and traditions. Not likely there's a river god for the Euphrates, but more likely there are beings that either associate with or have an interest in various things. One abductee claims to have met them, as he was told he was able to. The being came to him in the form of a midget-sized humanoid with a large forehead and a V-shaped head. It told him it could take any form it wanted, but stayed away from spiders and snakes because they are displeasing to your mind. Because of these findings, picking species apart from each other is an incredible exercise.
Watch Fire in the Sky.
That movie portrays a very negative image of abduction. The abductee in question, Travis Walton, was completely closed off to the idea of other beings, and the trauma resulting from his abduction is as such, skewed. Not to mention it's a movie, there is some creative liberty. Not all abductions involve horrible traumatic experiences. Generally they do, but then again humans hate forced studying and invasive testing and surgery. A lot of trauma resulting from abductions comes from the individual having a panic attack from their loss of control, in a setting they are completely unaware exists, by beings that they can't believe. And even then, they usually see the experience as a dream to fetter the anxiety away. Believe it or not, in the midst of my studies, I found that I was most likely an abductee myself. I don't care much to remember a traumatic experience that will tell me something I already know, that there are other beings and that they have an interest in us.
What kind of interest do they have in humans? Have they ever told anyone?
A couple things I've heard. They're interested in our capacity to adapt. As a self-conscious being, we piqued their interest. They are monitoring us as a destructive species and are displeased. A lot of the communication discourse portion of abductions involves instruction on the environmental status of our planet. I never was one for that kind of stuff, but nonetheless it comes up a lot. They seem to believe rather wholeheartedly that they are us, we are them, and we all share a unity consciousness that taps into beings all throughout the lifespan of a universe. Some regression uncovered past lives, something I also never believed in, and some indicate that they were once the aliens themselves, running experiments. One even was the subject of brutal violence on the part of an enraged, scared human. This dual human-alien identity is most likely their interest in us.
Being how massive the universe is, it's highly probable that extraterrestrial life does exist. Perhaps there was once a planet like ours, millions of years ago, and they were as developed, if not even more developed than ourselves. But due to their proximity to a star, their world was utterly obliterated, leaving behind no trace of their existence. After all, it will happen to us. It's safe to assume it's happened before. We may never find intelligent life outside of our planet in the time frame our planet is inhabitable.
I must admit you are a little wrong on two accounts. Firstly, a trace will have survived. If they follow along sufficiently with what we've done, there will be tons of radiation and electromagnetic noise, radio, television, Wi-Fi-like technology, which would bleed out. Of course, this may be sucked in by something else. I would like to think we as a species will find a way to leave this planet and star system before our sun's breaking point. We actually have no idea of how at this point, but then again, the idea of instantaneous transmission of information was witchcraft a couple centuries ago, and now it's a feature of every cell phone. it is not wholly unreal to suggest we may find a way to warp space-time to facilitate a large-scale exodus. Enormous starships are a science fiction folly. More likely we'll have a way of moving without expending much kinetic energy, though the energy required to facilitate a jump or a warp in space-time would be immense. I hear a lot of talk in abduction cases of space-time collapse and the craft being in a world outside the veil, and with our meager understanding of space-time, we simply can't fathom how they achieve such a thing.
I was a 90s kid. I grew up with X-Files, and the Greys were pretty much constantly on television. So until recently, I was certain that the phenomenon of so many young kids having these dreams was just a product of media saturation. But after finding out about reptilian aliens later in life, I'm not so sure. I'll explain. When I was young, I had nightmares about aliens on a nightly basis. They would drag me out of bed, paralyze me, etc. Then one night, I had the last alien abduction dream of my life. I was being dragged through a metal, looked like stainless steel, hallway by what seemed to be an albino, pink-skinned, pink-eyed, gray alien. Suddenly, a side corridor opened, and a massive, green-skinned, dinosaur-faced reptilian stepped out. He reached out and put the pink-skinned gray in some sort of headlock, causing it to release me, and I watched the two struggle a little until the reptilian slammed the gray's head into the wall, crushing its face and rupturing its eyeballs. It mumbled something and fell over, dead. I stood there frozen with fear as the reptilian bent down and met my eyes. Its eyes seemed barely open and luminescent. Then I woke up. I never thought much about it until years later in my adulthood, where in some random circle I heard mention of reptilian aliens and was shocked at how similar they seemed to what I had seen in my dreams. Did my young mind fabricate my hero? Who knows, but it's interesting to think about.
Not sure if this is alien-related, but I did have an underlying suspicion that it was. Last night I all of a sudden couldn't sleep. I heard a high-pitched but low ringing for a very long time. I was awake but trying to sleep, yet I couldn't sleep. I felt my heart beating so fast that I thought it was going to jump out of my chest. It might have been because I had 3 Red Bulls the day before, but I don't normally have this much trouble sleeping. I felt so uneasy, a cross between an instinctual fear and general dyskinesia. The room was becoming brighter and the ringing was becoming louder, and I felt more and more energy coming from my core. I felt like I was having a heart attack. I was too afraid to open my eyes because with all the weird experiences I notice a common theme. The aliens usually have something to do with the experiences. I woke up this morning in a cold sweat. I felt like I just ran a marathon, or that I've been in a huge fight. I am barely staying awake at my job as I'm typing this. I felt my heart beating rapidly again this morning on the commute to work, but it went away as soon as I had some caffeine, pic-related. Anime-ish, but still relatively accurate depiction of a human stage hybrid who has been my personal hybrid partner since I've started having abduction experiences as a kid. The thing that most throws me off with this drawing is both the large amount of emotion in the eyes, even if the eyes aren't larger, and also the way she just bobs her head slightly to the side like the alien. She is very beautiful, but the whole thing is very unsettling. We'll also post pic of close-looking actual human. Actual human that looks very close to personal hybrid. Hair and eye color is different, but same generally soft features and pale skin, and general feeling of peace and warmth in the eyes. Another story to bump thread. I once had a dream that I was taking a shower in my bathroom around 3 to 5 a.m. I felt really exhausted and was hurrying up so I could get into bed. I felt like I went through something labor-intensive. All of a sudden I see a early middle-stage hybrid child, less than 5 foot, in a purple or maroon jumpsuit just standing there staring at me. The being looked like it was of my seed. It had my facial features, olive skin tone, and brown curly hair that I don't have but is a common feature in my family bloodline. It also had very much of the alien's DNA. The eyes were very prominent and almond-shaped, tilted like the communion alien. Its pupils were massive, taking up most of the eyes. A split second after I spotted her staring at me showering, I woke up the next morning in my bed. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but I remember the hybrid child's face, especially the eyes. They were the same color as mine. It was quite surreal. I like to think it's a dream, but it was so vivid. Same anon. Here to mention another significant recent experience. As a kid during my sleep, I would occasionally feel a small tapping on my left shoulder. This would happen at completely random times between each incident. It could be a week or several months or a year between each time this happened. I never knew what it was, but didn't think of it much. I just told myself it was my dead grandparents visiting and checking up on me and dismissed it as just that. Before this incident, this must have happened 10 or so years ago. But the last time it happened was earlier this year. I felt the shoulder tapping, but I felt an overwhelming feeling of fear wash over me even though I didn't know what it was. I somehow thought keeping my eyes closed was the best way to go, so I did just that. What seemed like a few seconds later, I felt myself levitate off my back and land onto my stomach, then felt someone poking and prodding around my upper back, as if they were performing surgery, except it didn't hurt. This felt like what seemed like 20 to 30 seconds, but the whole time I heard no noise, unless I did hear noise, but I don't remember hearing any. I was then levitated off my stomach and put onto my back again. I didn't think anything of what happened. I just felt so tired that I went back to sleep like nothing. I woke up the next day and recalled the event in more detail. However, I still don't remember hearing any noise, and as far as I know, I kept my eyes closed the whole time. I wouldn't usually think it would be aliens because there wasn't anything that hinted to such, except that I have had vivid memories of aliens and hybrid aliens in nightmares I've had throughout my childhood.
A buddy and I witnessed a paramilitary operation involving about 30 to 50 Greys near Athens, Georgia in 2009. If you're interested, ask questions about it. If not, I don't care. I'm pretty tired, so I won't be writing an essay on it, if that's all right. I say paramilitary because the main force was composed of, from what my friend and I could tell, were not identifiable in any way. They wore all black, had assault weapons, and used vehicles I've never seen or heard of before or since. One of the vehicles was an immense truck-like thing that had satellites on the roof and looked like it could withstand direct hits from missiles. Definitely armored with a huge, maybe 5 to 10 feet sliding door on the side. Local police, unmarked sedans, and school buses were also present. The entire operation lasted about 2 minutes tops. The primary vehicles were the truck thing and a standard black van with a floodlight on the roof. My buddy and I were staying up late. This happened around 5:31 a.m. when we were heading to bed. His room, house is in a semi-vacant student neighborhood, faced the street with a window which we watched this out of. I'll break down the events very simply. Buddy and I decided to head to bed. His room faces the street with a large window. 2. We lay down for a few minutes. All of a sudden, a huge vehicle comes storming down the street and temporarily parks outside our window on the street. 3. We both jump up and look out the window through the blinds and watch the whole thing while being scared out of our wits. 4. As soon as the truck vehicle parks, another black van lights up its floodlight on the other side of the neighborhood, on a different street. 5. About 30 to 50 Greys, don't know exactly how many, come running out from behind houses, from inside houses, from behind bushes and so on. Some carrying items, some not. 6. Greys varied in size. They had a sort of gray-greenish skin, kind of like if you lived in a cave for 20 years and never saw sunlight or something. Ranged from about 3 feet to 5 feet tall, no genitals from what we could tell. Typical gray head with the big eyes, but like I said, some were smaller, some were larger. 7. At this moment, a local Athens police car pulled up onto my buddy's lawn and turned his brights on the window we were looking out of slits in the blinds. 8. We could still see the military guys waving the Greys into both vehicles, could see the Greys jumping and being pulled up into the vehicle, both the truck thing and the black van. 8. Both vehicles blast off. 9. After a few minutes, a few lights go on across the neighborhood from inside other people's houses. 10. School buses immediately begin circling throughout the neighborhood after the military guys leave. along with the typical-looking unmarked white sedans with tinted-out windows. That's the basics of it. Believe me or not, like I said, I don't give a shit.
2 years ago, unleashing my inner shit poster on my friendly native image board, trying to get a reaction from a classic AY Lemao thread. Post how you stumbled upon a collection of pictures from human mutilation cases on some darknet website, similar to cows and such. Claim that this stuff is hidden by the US government, and if anyone would be interested if I dumped them somewhere. No truth behind it. People start to demand a link. Disappear from the thread. Urge to sleep at midnight. Usually go to sleep at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. Leave the lights, computer, and screens on because I thought I would just take a nap. Go to bed, right next to the computer. Fall asleep with no problems. Suddenly, wake up. First notice that the room is dark. Worry.png. Notice a figure in the darkness around the kitchen area. Studio apartment. Moving towards me. Walks next to me. Moves its face right in front of me. Feel like the being is mad as hell. Same feeling I got when I broke something in the house as a kid. I can move my head and slightly move my torso. Move in a huge panic. Basically, flight and fight buttons are pressed at the same time. Suddenly, nothing. Wake up. Literally falling down, dropping down onto my bed from like 5 feet. I can remember looking at my PC while I was falling. Remember thinking how odd it was to be falling. Remember the being I saw. Those few bounces when I landed on my bed. Get up as fast as I can. Just walk back and forth the apartment because my heart was racing. Turn on the computer. As it booted, remember that you didn't turn it off. The clock is set on the oven, so it wasn't a power outage. At the same time, notice it's 2 p.m. I slept for 13 or 14 hours. Can't help it. Start to go through all this shit you've read on the internet about aliens. Can't stop thinking about the being. Stay up for more than 24 hours because I'm too scared to sleep. Never write another AI LMAO shitpost.
This fucking picture, I swear to God, I hate gray aliens. There's not many things I fear, like I was mugged once and all that, but I can walk at night in the city, no problems. But always when I'm at the country at my family's farm, bam, it gets dark and I'm freaking terrified of grays. Also driving at night through long desert stretches of roads freaks me the fuck out. I feel so vulnerable. I have had this weird tiny node since a kid inside my earlobe, which my stupid brother said was an alien chip when I was small. Also, I watched the movie Signs far too young, so maybe that's why I'm terrified. But it's terrible, terrible, the worst fear ever. I can't even look straight at a picture or even a silly alien drawing because I get the fucking heebie-jeebies. The weirdest thing, though, is that I'm kind of sort of obsessed with alien stuff. I have loved reading about ufology since I was a kid, watching documentaries and films. Most are crap, though, if you guys have any suggestions. Conspiracy, etc. Anyway, this is my rant. There was a very interesting gray alien topic here some months ago with people telling their similar experiences. I believe we've been programmed, everyone who has this same fear, and from that thread I know I'm no outlier. Cheers, P.S. I'm a 23-year-old dude, have been in the army, and I get water in my eyes and chills on my spine from this picture. I'll post peace out.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.